Lopez wants it away.
And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza and the Mets lead 3-2.
Bartolo has done it! The impossible has happened!
This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mets fans of all ages, here is your host, Nick Durst. Hello, Mets fans! Welcome back to another edition of Bleav in the Mets right here in the Bleav Podcast Network and, of course, the amazing Bleav in the Mets YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe so you never, ever miss an episode. And right now, we are in the middle of spring training. There's some news going on in Mets world, which we'll have to get into, of course, whether maybe get another GH and whatnot. Luckily, not too many injuries beyond the Kodai Senga injury. Now the talk is the Mets. Their pitching staff has this amazing spring training ERA. So what? I mean, they're basically got a bunch of like single A, double A guys. Doesn't mean anything to me. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Luis Severino, he's so muscular now. He's having a great spring." Okay, he's having a good spring. Let's see if he's got the durability. Let's see if he's able to not tip his pitches as we move forward here. Joining me now to discuss this and so much more. We've had on before. He's an esteemed author. He's an MLB researcher. He is Matthew Orso. Orso, welcome back to the show. Are you buying into this Luis Severino spring training hype?
I am not yet. Sevy has a great arm, 98 plus on his fastball when he's right, but it's spring training. You know, let's see how you do against the Braves lineup and the Phillies lineup, mid-June, as opposed to, single A advanced, whoever's of the Oakland A's, whoever you're bloody well facing. You got to go and prove it in the regular season. Until then, it's just a lot of question marks. Maybe not as many question marks as the Yankees rotation right now with Garrett Cole being out 1 to 2 months.
Opening day starter.
No, apparently it's going to be Marcus Stroman is what it's looking at now. Rodon is going to be game 2, according to Boone, he said on the Yes Network. But ruh-roh, not looking good across the other side of town, and I'm feverishly refreshing my Twitter feed to find any Dylan Cease news whatsoever. But my panic and dread will just have to wait until another time because there's a lot of good stuff going on in Mets land right now. The view looks pretty good.
Well, listen, Severino, I think they overpaid for him. I thought it was surprising that they came out of the gate within like the first day of free agency, and they're like, we're giving Severino $10 million. Probably could have got it for a lot less. I don't know, maybe was the competition really that high for him? But, I mean, you watched all of his starts. Does he have anything left? I don't think he's going to ever become this 2018 pitcher he is again. That's the last time he had 20 starts in a season.
1,000%. And I think it's unrealistic to expect him to be the Severino that he was, we're going on 6-7 years ago now. Now, what he still is a guy who can throw in the upper 90s. He has to work on tipping the pitches. The arm is still there, but it's a matter of staying healthy. He's only had one year of like 100 plus innings over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's all about health, especially in a Mets rotation that's without Kodai Senga until probably about May or so. That has a lot of question marks, a lot of holes in it. A little concerning, but Sevy still has the potential. Just a matter of tapping into it.
Well, now Manaea got a haircut, so he's basically a whole new pitcher. Are you believing the hype around Manaea that he had such a great end of the year last year that he's going to be good to go now?
I know he worked, I believe, with Driveline and, was tinkering his slider. Look, he's always been a good arm. This is a guy who's thrown a no-hitter in the big leagues. Pitched decently well second part of the year with the Giants last year. I think he's a good arm. It's just, I equate the Mets, and please, Mets fans, don't yell at me or, tweet at me or anything, but you guys are the island of misfit toys. Like, you got so many different pieces that, I get there's a little bit of a rebuild, but Steve Cohen, King Cohen, the money, the whole thing, what have you, It's not looking like a playoff roster. We're looking closer to the Cardinals 71 and 91 last year roster.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, they obviously bring in Manaea, they bring in Severino, they trade for Hauser. Quintana's on his last year. So you're looking at next off season where you have to replace 4 starting pitchers, which is insane. You look at the roster, almost everybody in the bullpen outside of Edwin Diaz is going to be a free agent, and obviously Pete Alonso is going to be a free agent. So everybody's on a 1-year deal. So I don't think despite what I've been hearing from the front office, I don't think the Mets are actually going for it this year. I don't see how you could imagine they're going for it with this roster. I think they're just trying to hopefully have a Severino or a Manaea be good so they could trade him at the deadline and get some prospects. I think that's the game plan.
That is 1,000% correct. I envision, and I take no glee in this, but I envision a Mets season, unfortunately, that mirrors what you saw last year, trading, the big guys who you could get prospects back at the deadline. This is how Steve Cohen is rebuilding your minor league system, by trading veterans to get prospects. And it turns out well for teams. All the Aroldis Chapman crazy cuckoo news today aside, the Rangers traded Cole Ragans to the Royals for Chapman last year. Rangers won a World Series, and Ragans is the top pitcher right now for the Kansas City Royals. So you can get prospects that turn out well for your franchise from a mid-season deal by flipping a veteran. That's something I think the Mets are going to do a lot of. I think they're hoping for a bounce-back year from Harrison Bader. I think they're hoping for a bounce-back year from Severino. I think there's a lot of potential upside, but the floor is lower than a basement. Mm-hmm. And that's also a big factor in this season. Mets could be hunting for a playoff spot, potentially. I'd be shocked. If the Diamondbacks make the World Series, anyone can. But it also would not shock me if the Washington Nationals, with their good crop of young players, finished ahead of you in the division either.
I'm so sick of hearing about, the Diamondbacks went to the World Series. They had 3 really good young starting pitchers that carried them throughout the season. The Mets don't have any young starting pitchers. If the Mets are going to be good this year, then you have to have Drew Gilbert's got to be up in April or May, and he's got to be their Corbin Carroll. If that doesn't happen, I don't see where the Mets are getting these wins from. It's great, Matthew, that Edwin Diaz is back, but how often is he going to get the ball with the lead? I don't see how the pitchers are going to go 5 innings. The bullpen's a disaster. We got Fujinami. He throws 101, but he walks everybody with his 70 ERA. I mean, the whole bullpen that they brought in is guys coming off their career worst years. So Diaz is back. It's great. They saw him in spring training. They played the trumpets. He's going to get 25 saves, and he's not going to have that many opportunities to win you games.
He's not. And, I want to be hopeful for the Mets because good Mets baseball is good for the city, is good for the region, is good for everything in Major League Baseball. But there's a big chance this could be a big bad season for them. There's just no way to sugarcoat it. And not for nothing, if you guys are out of it at the deadline, there's part of me that wonders if Steve Cohen and David Stearns consider trading Pete Alonso.
I don't think David Stearns would think twice. He's got no ties to the guy. He didn't draft him. He didn't develop him. And he will trade him if the price is right. What kind of return do you think you can get for Pete Alonso? You think you could get some top prospects?
You want to recoup Pete Crow Armstrong back from the Cubs? I don't know. Look, Alonso, since he's debuted, has more home runs and more RBIs than anyone in Major League Baseball. He's the premier offensive threat. He's also approaching the wrong side of 30 and is a first baseman. The highest first base contract in baseball is Matt Olson, I believe 8 for 168, somewhere around there, even more than Freddie Freeman. Alonso reportedly this offseason was I want a Judge contract. I want 300 plus. The only way he's getting 300 plus is if he and Mookie Betts combine their contracts. Other than that, he's not getting 300 plus. I think if you're the Mets, what I would do, because he does mean a lot to your franchise, and if you lose him, you really lose your only offensive threat to me outside of Lindor and Nimmo.
And you lose your fan base, and you lose ticket sales.
Oh, 1,000%. So what I would do if I'm Steve Cohen is offer him 8 for 200. You make him the richest first baseman in the game. The AAV's under 30. He gets to that 2 number. He sets the market for first base, and he's a Met for life.
Yep.
You'll probably have to eat 3 or 4 of the final years. But if he can still give you, 30 plus and 100 plus in year 5 or 6 of that deal, it's a win, and it's a win for your offense. You can move him to DH in the latter part,
right?
And not for nothing.
He's got a chance to hit 500 home runs. He could be on a Hall of Fame path. That means a lot to the franchise beyond just winning games.
He will keep, even just with this year, could go down as your greatest offensive player in the history of the
franchise. The most home runs in the history of the franchise after this year, most likely. And if they have him just another 2-3 years, he's going to break all the offensive records. My worry, Matthew, is that they are going to, pull a New York Giants, and I could see Pete Alonso signing with the Philadelphia Phillies next offseason.
Oh, no. Do not put that out in the universe, because the universe will listen. No, see, when I hear the Saquon Barkley to the Phillies, I think of that like Robinson Cano to, when he went to the Mariners. Like, it wasn't great. He was a franchise star, but he was probably on the downturn. Pete Alonso is baseball's most potent offensive threat when healthy.
Right.
And he is a New York Met. Steve Cohen is all about the history of the Mets, is all about Mets. Pete Alonso is the New York Mets.
Yeah.
And if you're Cohen, if I'm Cohen, I tell Stearns, you're signing him.
Yep.
We're not playing around here. I don't care how much money. I'll just add another $250 million in whatever stock or whatever trade or however bloody hell he gets all his money. But you cannot lose Pete Alonso for the sake of your franchise. He is your Aaron Judge. If you let Pete Alonso, and heaven forbid you let Pete Alonso go to the bloody Philadelphia Phillies. I don't think that'll be the case, because you got Bryce Harper there now at first base. But if you let him go to the Phillies or the Cubs, or my nightmare scenario, well, your dream, my nightmare scenario is the Mets sign Soto in the offseason and the Yankees sign Alonso to replace Anthony Rizzo.
All right.
I don't want that. You don't want that. No one wants Juan Soto in Queens. I didn't say that out loud. Point being, you gotta keep Pete Alonso.
Well, the thing is interesting. I talked about this last week's episode, but the whole thing with Soto to the Mets, I don't think it's like even a conversation on his end unless Pete Alonso's back with the Mets. Because why is he going to sign with the Mets off a bad season? There's nothing he's nothing there. He's going to want to be in the middle lineup with Pete Alonso. So I'm not someone who is saying, all right, let's move on from Alonso. We can get Soto. I think it's either you got to do the package deal or you just run it back with Pete Alonso, because to me, I don't see how Juan Soto all on his own is going to make a major impact with the Mets roster next season. But that's months away. I hate that people keep saying, okay, let's trade Alonso and then we'll pull Chapman, we'll sign him again. I don't think that never happened one time in the history of baseball recently. And I think if Pete Alonso got traded, I don't think he'd be happy, and I don't think he'd want to come back. So I think if you trade him, that's PR suicide for David Stearns. The stadium's going to be empty in the second half of the season. It's already going to be empty because they're going to be bad this year. But you trade Pete Alonso, it's going to be a massive PR hit. You already screwed up because you fired Buck Showalter. You thought you were getting Craig Counsell. You take Carlos Mendoza, the bench coach from the worst Yankee team in 30 years, and they make him the manager. It's a total rebuild by getting Carlos Mendoza, obviously. So Pete Alonso might even like playing for Carlos Mendoza. He might look around at this team this year and be like, I want to win. I'm 30. I got to get somewhere I want to win next year. But I think if they trade him or so, I don't think there's any shot that he's going to come back to the Mets in the offseason.
But by the way, your whole team is Yankees cast-offs. You know that, right? G-Man Troy, Luke Voigt, Harrison Bader, Adam Ottavino,
Severino,
Carlos Mendoza, Luis Severino. Even Buck Showalter last year was the Yankees manager. And your manager now was the Yankees bench coach last year.
Yeah,
your entire team you are the New York Yankees of Queens. Let's be honest. It's kind of sad. Little sad.
For what it's worth, though, Luke Voigt, I think he should be the Mets DH. I mean, he's got some power in him. He's definitely a better option than Mark Vientos, I think.
Nick, you're a knowledgeable Mets fan. You're one of the smartest baseball people I know. Explain something to me. How the hell are you giving Mark Vientos at-bats? I feel like you guys have seen him enough now where you know he's not going to be great. And you got bloody JD Martinez still on the free agent market, who had 33 homers and 103 ribbies last season and can impart so much knowledge in baseball to your young hitters, to Brett Beatty. Like, what the bloody hell are you doing?
Well,
Sign Martinez.
2 words, Matthew Orso, about Mark Vientos while he gets another shot. Exit velo. They love his exit velo. Who cares about his exit velo if he can't make contact half the time?
You know what? Good exit velo? Freaking Franchi Cordero. He's in Japan now. Like, come on. I'm a researcher. I love stats, all that, yada, yada. I don't give a rat's rear end if someone has a high exit velo if he can't put the ball in play.
Right.
All right? So JD Martinez is one of the best hitters in baseball, and it makes absolute no sense to me that the Mets would not sign him, because if you put JD in that lineup and you have a mix of Lindor, Alonso, and Martinez.
It's not bad.
I just realized you can acronym it, LAM. If you have the LAM, you can make a postseason push. If you get those three together, that's a good lineup with Brandon Nimmo. If Jeff McNeil can return to being the hitter he was a couple years back, if Francisco Alvarez really shows that pop and can hit 30 to 35 bombs this year, that's a good lineup.
Yeah.
But Mark Vientos, why? It doesn't make sense to me as an outsider, as someone who watches baseball, but is not necessarily a Mets fan. And I see this, and I'm like, Mark Vientos. No disrespect, but Mark Vientos?
Listen, the Mets, the one thing they're lacking is power. Alonso hit home runs. No one else hits home runs, really. And they have 2 guys they can go after now in free agency. JD Martinez or JD Davis. Both guys have some power. Obviously, Martinez will be a little more money. If you're the Mets or so, which guy are you targeting? I'll put it to you this way. Are you going to sign JD Martinez, or are you going to sign JD Davis, or are you going to stick with Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, and DJ Stewart? What do you think is the best option of those 3 options there?
None are great, but obviously JD Martinez. I'm sorry, but the wisdom that he possesses, the years of baseball experience that he has, and the guy just had 33 and 103. If making the playoffs is the goal, and supposedly, I believe David Stern says you guys are a playoff caliber team, you have Steve Cohen. The 3rd-tier luxury tax doesn't mean bubkiss. Sign JD Martinez, and quite honestly, sign JD Davis. Sign both of them. JD squared. He still has a glove. 18 home runs last year for the Giants, 103 OPS plus, decent defender. What happened in San Fran with the whole Matt Chapman signing, I'm sure he's going to have an edge on him, that he's going to want to prove the Giants wrong. Bring him back to Queens. Bring him with JD Martinez. You can give Brett Beatty the at-bat to 3rd, but JD can play 3rd. He can play 1st. I think in an emergency.
Backup first baseman, yeah.
It makes all the sense in the world, honestly, to sign both of them. Mark Vientos, and I feel bad because I feel like I've been dissing Mark Vientos. Great exit velo, great pop. But he's been up for a little bit now, and unless I'm wrong, I haven't seen as much. And I get you want to give him the opportunity, but you also want to put fans in your seats. And Mets fans, though I think Yankee fans have been more long-suffering over the last couple decades because you've been to a World Series more recently than us.
Yeah.
It's been bad. You went from an 100-win team to whatever the hell last season was, 75 wins.
Right.
I think
they have a good shot to be worse this year. So.
Oh, they have a great shot to be worse this year. There's a chance, maybe not a great one, but there's a chance the New York Metropolitans have fewer than 70 wins this year, as presently constructed.
Well, listen, at least then they can keep their draft pick. It'll be protected because it'll be in the top 5. They lost their draft pick this year.
You got the draft lottery. Cleveland got the number 1 overall pick this year. No one expected that.
Right, and the Mets dropped 18th because or 20-something because they had the luxury tax. So, real quick, JD Martinez, JD Davis, it's interesting. I love my sponsors, and one of our sponsors, if I wanted to, would have allowed me to bet on who's going to have more home runs. That's the Cut app. They're a peer-to-peer social betting platform. The league in all 40 states. They have customizable odds. You can track capabilities with an entire social network. You got group chats and all that stuff. So listen, right now they're offering a 10% welcome bonus if you listen to this show. So put your money where your mouth is and use the promo code Bleav Mets, BLEAV, all in caps, METS. So, Orso, I'm going to give you three options. Tell me who's going to produce more home runs. JD Martinez, JD Davis, or the trio of Mark Vientos, DJ Stewart, and Brett Beatty. Which of those three options has the most home runs this year?
Oh, that's a good one. Not JD Davis. He's 18 to 20 at best. JD Martinez, you put him at Citi Field. I think he's got 30 in him. I really do. Beatty, if you give Beatty a full season, is 15 to 18 in the realm of possibility, potentially. Vientos probably gets a hold of, if he's your everyday DH, probably gets a hold of like 20, 25, but that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about, the 160 plus strikeouts and the potentially under 200 batting average. That's what I'm worried about. I'm not a gambling man. But though no shame to your sponsors, having sponsors is great. Always do the sponsorship, the whole thing, what have you. I would say in that group, those three probably out homer the other two separately.
So you got Mark Vientos with a lot of home runs.
No, but if you combine right. JD Martinez, JD Stewart, combine them, they'll have more.
Sure. Yeah, you got yourself so worked up, Orso, you muted yourself, but we get the point. You're screaming about Mark Vientos.
Okay, let me repeat it in case you don't have trained lip readers reading your show here. If you combine JD Martinez and JD Davis, and you'll have more than Vientos and Beatty.
Right, and have 45, 50 home runs between the two of them.
Yes, 1,000%. 50 home runs. That's better than Vientos and Beatty. JD Martinez, JD squared, better than Vientos and Beatty. I get you want to give the young guys a look. This is a transition year. You are the New York Mets. You're in New York. There's no more transition years. You got King Cohen. Go out and win. Just don't sign Juan Soto. I called dibs already in the Bronx.
We'll see what happens there with Soto. That'll be a lingering story for sure. How many games do you think Harrison Bader is going to play this year for the Mets? Because there was a host thing about, Nimmo's volunteering to play left field. Well, first of all, Nimmo has no say where he's playing. He's under contract. And number two, Brandon Nimmo's still going to play like at least 80 games in center field because Harrison Bader is going to get hurt.
Oh, yes, he is. One thing I learned from watching Harrison Bader the last 2 years is that the man can't stay healthy. Though I will say the Yankees do not win the 2022 ALDS against Cleveland without him. Premier power in that series, though sadly in that series only. I think if you get 110 games out of Harrison Bader, you will consider yourself lucky. Now, he's a solid base runner plus defender. Kevin Kiermaier from the right-handed side. That's what I equate him to. But health has been an issue for him. Center field at Citi Field isn't exactly, not much room. It's a little bit spacious there. I would lean towards if you get 110 games from Bader this year, you're lucky. I think Nimmo, when Bader's out, could slide back to center. You can put DJ Stewart in left, or if you got JD Davis, he can go to left. But the floor for the Mets with all these guys you've signed, and again, island of misfit toys with all these guys. The floor could be really, really bad. The ceiling could be a postseason spot. The floor could be, behind the Washington Nationals and Pittsburgh Pirates and other teams in the National League this year.
All right, so we'll end with this, or so Mets. Give me their win range. What are you thinking? Give me a five game win range.
See, that's tough because part of me could see the Mets winning 67, 68 games this year. And then part of me could see the Mets winning 83, 84 games this year if everything goes right. I'm going to say 72 wins. I'm just right on there. Just 72 wins. You're fifth place behind the Washington Nationals. Dylan Cruz, great prospect. James Wood, great prospect. Came in the original Juan Soto deal of the Padres. Their pitching depth I kind of like a little better than the Mets. Honestly, Patrick Corbin, who's been one of the worst starters in baseball the last few years, if he was in your rotation, that would give you stability at this point. That's how kind of wishy-washy the Mets rotation is right now. I feel bad for Mets fans because you guys deserve better. Not Juan Soto better, but you deserve better. So I really do think it's going to be about a 72-win season if you held a weapon to my head, though the range I do think could be anywhere from 67 to 83.
That's a big range. 16 win
Well,
range.
I think it's going to be 72, but there is a big range. There's so many question marks with this team.
Thing. I really think if they are in the mix of the trade deadline, let's say within 3-4 games, they're going to stay put. They're not. I don't see any scenario where the Mets are adding them this year. They had a 101-win team in 2022. They barely added anybody other than Darren Ruff and Vogelback. So I don't see a scenario where they're going to mortgage the future all of a sudden to get these prospects. Because even if they snuck in the playoffs, which I think is unlikely, this team is definitely not built for October with the pitching. So it would be really tough. And the offense, again, there's going to be a lot of ifs with this team. When you're dealing with ifs, you're not dealing with reality. So if 100 things went right, it would be a fairy tale. You can make a Disney movie, but the odds are stacked against the Mets this season.
By the way, not for nothing, like the fandom in New York recently, not going through good stuff. Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, Yankees lose Garrett Cole. Aaron Rodgers might be vice president with
Aaron
RFK.
Judge. He's hurt.
Judge. He's supposed to play Saturday. That just came out. Judge is going to be fine-ish. But New York sports, we're kind of suffering here. The Nets have been bad all year. The Knicks are finally starting to get healthy, but something will screw up their season, probably the Celtics. But yeah, it's not good right now.
Dark times will continue for New York sports. Let's go New York Liberty. Maybe you could break the championship drought. Orso, this has been great. Please let everybody know where they can find you, your work, and your books.
Thank you. Matthew_Orso on Twitter. You might see a lot of Yankee rants recently in all caps and exclamation points. Definitely not a happy camper right now. Working on a new book on the Yankees, hopefully out within the next year. I'll be sure to come back if I'm able to come back, as in like that I didn't get banned from the podcast here.
February series episode.
More about it. I'll tell more about it then, but really looking forward to it. And anyone can come talk to me on social media. I have a lot of rants and a lot of opinions, and let's just put it this way. I might have more followers, and I only have like 200 followers or so on Twitter than the Mets might by the end of this season. It's not looking good.
All right. Well, Orso, this has been great. Everybody follow him. You're going to make sure you want to be locked into his Twitter next offseason if Juan Soto becomes a Met, because he'll have a lot to say. And this is, of course, the Bleav in the Mets podcast. So you have to follow us on all social media at Bleav in the Mets, BLEAVINTHEMETS, all social media platforms. And, of course, the awesome YouTube page. I am on X at Nick_Durst. I am on Instagram at Nick's Food and Stuff. And until next time, everybody, let's hope for the best and let's go Mets.